Netflix has proven to be able to keep us glued to the TV. Get the popcorn ready, because I'll now tell you which series are most to blame. Top 10 Best Netflix Series 2023. Number 10, Dahmer. A series about serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, who was also a cannibal and necrophiliac. The director, Ryan Murphy, has also done work like American Horror Story and American Crime Story, so he already had experience with crime and horror when it came to filming. And to think he had also directed Glee. What a turnaround. Dahmer has a 7.9 on IMDb and 57% on Rotten Tomatoes. It stands out for being a suspense series with strikes of horror, mainly due to the atmosphere and the feeling that something terrible is about to happen then from the strong scenes. It's definitely not a gore series, although there is blood. At the time, it was quite criticized for allegedly romanticizing a murderer. The director, in response, defined his series as a complaint of how the white serial killer killed gay African American, Latino, Native American, and Asian-descended men without anyone taking the accusations seriously. Social criticism or pure morbidity? No one knows. Number 9, 1899. With 7.4 points on IMDb and a 76% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, this series begins by placing us on the Cerberus, a ship heading from Europe to the United States, but which diverts its route when it receives a distress call from another ship, the Prometheus. Spoiler alert! There's no one on that ship except a child, whose very presence is accompanied by a series of paranormal events. This series, directed by Baran Bodar and Jante Fries, is focused on reality and what we consider real. Its technical aspects are also surprising, as it was filmed using a technology called the volume, which consists of a large curved LED screen in front of which the scenes take place. This background is modified in coordination with the camera movements. All this allowed the crew to work in an area of 3,750 square feet, with great versatility of angles without having to move to different locations during shooting. Quite useful considering it was filmed in the middle of a pandemic. Number 8, Wednesday. In this series, the daughter of the Addams family is enrolled in a boarding school for children with special powers, such as werewolves, vampires, gorgons, and mermaids. Soon, however, a series of mysterious murders begins to take place, and Wednesday sets out to find the killer. Not only is this a detective series, but also a teen slasher series, the kind that Netflix produces very well. You'll see a love triangle, conflicts between students, and the protagonist's rivalry with the most popular girl in school. Throughout the series, the gloomy look of the set design stands out in addition to the acid humor.
The only person who gets to torture my brother is me.
Which is director Tim Burton's imprint. If you've watched Corpse Bride, many of these things will ring a bell. Meanwhile, Jenna Ortega's lead performance has been very well received by critics. It's rated 8.2 on IMDb and has a 72% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. But not only that, in its first week alone, it achieved over 341 million hours watched, becoming Netflix's most watched English-language series in that time span. Number 7, House of Cards. There's no way you haven't heard of it. This political drama chronicling the rise of Machiavellian politician Frank Underwood to the pinnacle of American power was produced by director David Fincher, famous for being behind Fight Club and Social Network. While overall the series scored 8.7 on IMDb and 77% on Rotten Tomatoes, its final season was one of the most hated due to the absence of Kevin Spacey, who played Frank Underwood, because he was accused of sexual abuse. House of Cards is also a metadata prodigy. It was designed when Netflix thought very well about its early investments, not like now. David Fincher's movies were highly sought after on the platform. While data showed that once users watched a Kevin Spacey movie, they kept watching another and another by the same actor. It was a safe bet that paid off. The references to Shakespeare's theater are notorious. Frank Underwood's ruthless use of power is based on Richard III, while his relationship with his wife is based on that of Lord and Lady Macbeth. Number 6, Vikings. It focuses on the exploits of Ragnar Lothbrok, a legendary Viking character who is said not to have actually existed, but was the mashup of several other historical characters. That complexity meant that, originally, a miniseries ended up becoming 6 seasons. The first with 9 episodes, because 9 is a magic number in Viking mythology. Michael Hurst, the director, who has also made other historical series such as The Tudors, got the production into trouble when he wanted to faithfully recreate the cruel battles. So they needed up to 5 barrels of red liquid per battle, and not just any liquid, but one that wouldn't permanently stain the costumes and damage the skin of the actors. Thus, they opted for a combination of gum syrup and dye. In addition, 4 dead languages were used in the script: Latin, Old Norse, Anglo-Saxon, and Medieval French. The series has 8.5 points on IMDb and a 93% approval on Rotten Tomatoes. If you liked it, you already know there's a sequel, Vikings Valhalla, which deals with what happened 100 years later. Number 5. The Crown. It narrates the life of Queen Elizabeth and some members of the royal family since her accession to the throne. It's directed by Peter Morgan, who already had experience in films dealing with the subject of this monarch. In 2006, he made a film portraying Queen Elizabeth's reaction to Diana's death. In this series, the cast changes as the characters age. Claire Foy was in charge of playing the Queen in the first 2 seasons. In the following seasons, it was Olivia Colman, and in the last 2, it was Imelda Staunton, known for her role as Dolores Umbridge in Harry Potter. It has 8.6 points on IMDb, 86% approval on Rotten Tomatoes, and was already acclaimed since its first season. It also won the Golden Globe for Best Drama Series, beating out others like Game of Thrones. Now everyone is waiting for its 6th season, which will deal with Diana's death. If you like royal gossip, you'll love it. Number 4. Stranger Things. Set in an Indiana town in the 80s, this series begins when a 12-year-old boy mysteriously disappears, which triggers a series of events that lead the viewer to discover monsters like the Demogorgon and hidden worlds like the Upside Down. Among its strong points is a perfect recreation of the period, which not only plays with the nostalgia of the viewers, but is also a key element of the plot, because if it had been set years later, any photo or video taken with a cell phone would have ruined the mystery. It also highlights the depth of the characters, who although at the beginning may be shown with cliches such as the troubled teenager or the shy boy, they acquire more and more complexity as the plot progresses, making it possible to empathize with them. Stranger Things has 8.7 points on IMDb and 92% approval on Rotten Tomatoes. The 3rd season was watched by 40.3 million accounts in its first 4 days, 18.2 million of which had already finished watching it in that time. A Netflix record. Number 3. Black Mirror. Black Mirror is a series created by Charlie Brooker. The first 2 seasons were broadcasted on the British channel, Channel 4, but Netflix bought the rights and produced 3 more seasons. There are 5 seasons in total, but it doesn't have only one plot. Each chapter is independent and is set in a more technologically advanced era. The episodes are related to some technological advances, such as the ability to reproduce memories on a television screen or a neurological implant used to digitize the mind. The situations derived from the interaction of humans with these new advances end up having a rather disconcerting and even hopeless effect on the viewer. Due to the quality of its scripts, the careful selection of the cast, and its great photography, it's destined to become a cult series. Black Mirror has earned 8.8 points on IMDb and a 95% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 2. Narcos. When Narcos premiered, many thought it'd be more like a narco novella centered on the life of a drug lord, but nothing could be more different than that. While its first 2 seasons tell the story of the rise and fall of Pablo Escobar, he plays the role of antagonist, as the story is portrayed from the perspective of DEA agents Javier Peña and Steve Murphy. Throughout its 3 seasons, you see how the victories and defeats between the protagonists have a personal effect on each of them as the drug war rages on. The struggle for victory over the adversaries takes on much more desperate characteristics in the 2nd season. And in the following season, the fight against the Cali cartel is narrated, all to make it clear that the drug business and corruption never ends, which is not very encouraging. This series has an 8.8 rating on IMDb and 97% approval on Rotten Tomatoes. Now that you've made it this far, it's time to get to know the series you can't miss out on for anything. Number 1. Dark. It was created by Baran Bodar and Jean-Té Fries, the directors of 1899. with which it has many points in common. And speaking of similarities, similarly to Stranger Things, it begins with the disappearance of 3 children. An event that unleashes commotion in a small German town, since in a nearby forest, there are some caves with portals in which you can time travel. All this creates a complex series, for many, the most complicated ever watched on Netflix, in which the characters meet their younger versions and discover dark secrets from the very first chapters. Furthermore, it has a macabre aesthetic, as the forest is quite scary. A very well-done script that invites you to think about existential questions such as how changing the future changes the past. Yes, just as you hear, because the normal thing in time travel is that the past changes the future, but here, everything works differently. Dark has 8.7 points on IMDb and 95% approval on Rotten Tomatoes. If you want to break your head, this is the series for you. These were the best Netflix series. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. See you next time.